Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. Now this week's video is another one in the series of classic cameras from the past, and this is a classic camera, but it's from the more recent past, and it's the Pentax LX. It's Pentax's only professionally made graded SLR camera that they ever made. It's a beautiful camera. It feels solid in the hand, and it's a real pleasure to use. I started using Pentax cameras quite a number of years ago. The first one that I bought was a Pentax SP, a Spotmatic, and then I went to the K1000, onto the Pentax MX, and then onto the ME Super cameras. And I liked every one of those cameras, especially the more recent ones like the MX and the ME Super. They had a more compact body. In fact, the MX had a camera body that was very, very similar in size to this. Now, when this camera came out in around 1980, I really wanted to buy one of these for some of the features that it had. But unfortunately, at that period in my life, I just couldn't afford the price that they were asking for it. It was a very, very expensive camera to buy. So I had to wait quite a number of years. In fact, I bought this camera 7 years ago. Obviously, when digital cameras came in, the price of film cameras dropped, and I saw this on eBay, bought the camera. It arrived all boxed up with the 50mm 1.7 lens, and it was absolutely like brand spanking new. There wasn't a mark on it. I don't think it had ever been used. So I was well pleased with that, and at last I got my hands on the Pentax LX, one of the finest SLR cameras that Pentax ever made. Now the LX, it's a 35mm single lens reflex camera made by Asahi Optical Co in Japan. This camera was introduced around about 1980, and the production run went on to about 2001, and after that no more were made. Now during its life there were changes made to the camera, mainly internal to the internal electronics, but to all intents and purposes there were very minor changes made to the body, and the camera looked the same throughout its production run. The LX uses the proprietary Pentax K-mount bayonet system. Just line the red dots up and turn it quick and easy, very reliable. It's a fully manual camera, metered manual, and it's also got aperture priority mode. Now around about 1970, Nikon introduced the Nikon F2 and Canon the original F1, and they were the bread and butter cameras for the professional photographer, and obviously they invested heavily into those systems in lenses and accessories for the cameras. Now this camera came along 10 years, or around about 8 to 10 years later, and the people that were using the Nikon and Canon cameras were very reluctant to invest into this system after putting so much money into the systems that they were using. So this camera really came in too late. It wasn't as popular as a professional camera as the Nikons and the Canons, but I do believe that if this camera had came out roughly at the same time with the features that it has, it would have competed very highly with the Canon and the Nikon professional cameras, and I think it would have been a lot more popular. In fact, it would have taken a lot of trade away from Canon and Nikon. Now the LX is really built to last. It's all metal construction, and it's all in a very compact body. It feels quite heavy, but it's not too heavy. It just feels solid. It feels like it's a solid piece of brass when you get hold of it. It's a wonderful camera to hold, and it's the only camera of its era that was fully weather sealed. Moisture getting in and dust. Everything that lifted up or turned on this camera, even the wind-on lever, had rubber O-rings to stop the ingress of dust and moisture getting into the innards of the camera. It also features a very advanced metering system for ambient light and dedicated flash units. Pentax call it the IDM system, and that stood for integrated direct metering. It's basically off the film plane metering. In other words, a light enters through the lens, it bounces off the film plane, and the light is measured in real time. So when you take a picture with this in either manual or aperture priority, if you take the picture and the light changes, the camera will adjust automatically and give you 95% of the time really good exposures. So it was very advanced. In fact, nothing could really compete with the LX's accuracy in metering, even the Olympus OM system. This camera was more advanced than that, and this camera could meter down to 125 seconds, right up to 2,000th of a second, and it was said that the electromagnetic shutter, which was made of titanium, was very reliable, and it worked down to minus 30 degrees. So that's pretty impressive. Now the camera needs two LR44 batteries or equivalents to work the meter and the electromechanical shutter, but if the batteries failed in this camera, you can still use the mechanical speeds, which run from 1/75th of a second up to 2,000th of a second, and also in bulb mode. Now with the batteries in, you get the automatic electronic speeds from 1/60th of a second right down to virtually minutes. The list of lenses available for this camera is vast. From Pentax, over 50 lenses were made. It has 8 interchangeable finders, different types of focusing screens, a data back could be fitted, auto winders, power winders, bulk film winders. This camera was a true professional camera, and you could buy virtually anything for this. I can go on and on about the features of this amazing camera, but to do that it would make this video far too long. So I'm going to leave a link in the description to a resources page all about the Pentax LX, about how it was conceived, the accessories you can buy for this camera. So if you're thinking about buying one of these cameras, take a look at the link in the description, and as I say, it'll give you a lot more information than I can possibly give in this video. So let's take a closer look at this camera and how it works, and also at the end of the video I'm going to show you a selection of pictures that I've taken with this camera over the years. So let's take another look at the Pentax LX, a closer look. Now I'm showing you here without the finder on and the lens, just to give you an idea the size of the body. It measures in length 5 3/4, in height up to the rewind crank it's 3 inches, and then the actual width from front to back is just under 2 inches. So as you can see, it's a very compact camera. Now I'll attach the lens to it. This is a Pentax 50mm f1.7, and it's a PK mount. You align the red dot on the lens to the red dot on the body, and it fits securely into place, and it's very easy to do. And then I'll show you the finder. This is the what they call the standard finder. It's the one with the hot shoe at the top. It's got the hot shoe contacts there. And this one also has a little aperture that reads the aperture scale on the lens, and it reflects it back into the viewfinder. All the finders for this camera come with a diopter adjustment, so it's great if you wear glasses. And to put the finder on the camera, just simply slide it in from the back and it locks into place. So you can see it's very smooth and very easy. And even with the finder of the lens on, it's still a very compact camera. So let's look at some of the functions of the camera. At this side we've got the rewind, the wind on lever. It's very smooth and it's got a short throw. And as you see, when you wind the camera on, there's a little window there that turns red to let you know that it's wound on. And when you fire the shutter, it goes back to black. If you wind the camera on and you decide you not want to take the picture, just as a precaution, you just swivel this guard anti-clockwise and you can't fire the shutter. It has got a cable release socket in the shutter button as well. To take the picture, you just simply rotate it clockwise and then you can fire the shutter. This is the frame counter at this side. It's a very accurate frame counter, that, and when you lift or open the back, it actually resets itself and goes back to zero. This is the actual shutter dial on the camera. It runs from B all the way through to 2,000th of a second, and then it goes one more click and it locks it into automatic. Now you can't move it from the automatic unless you press that little button there, and then you can go back to the manual speeds. So it's locked in position there. That's basically it at this side of the camera. On this side we've got the multifunctional dial here. You press that little button there and you can alter the ISO or ASA of the film, and when you let go it actually locks it into place. Now this is the exposure compensation dial. You probably use this more in the automatic mode, and it's marked quite differently from other cameras. It goes from times 1/4 up to times 4, and that simply means that when you're at 1 times, it means there's no compensation. If you press that little button, you can move the dial and it moves in third stop increments. If you go to 2 times, that means you're giving 1 stop extra exposure. 4 times, two stops extra exposure, bring it all the way back down. Half times is 1 stop under exposure, and 1/4 times is 2 stops under exposure. And as I say, it's got the third stop increments, and you press that button to release the dial. This little button as well switches on the meter in the camera. So if you've, say for instance, got a cable release attached to the camera, you can just press that button and it activates the meter. This is the rewind crank. Lift that up to open the back, or when you've finished the roll of film, you just press the rewind button at the bottom, open that up and wind on until the film's wound back. To release the viewfinder or the finders on this camera, you've got a little lever there. You just push that to the right and it releases the viewfinder to put another one on, or you might want to clean the screen. And then to put it back on, you just simply slide it back on, and it's very, very smooth and it fits very securely. At the back of the camera, we've just got the film reminder there. Fairly straightforward. There's a couple of electronic contacts there. I'm not sure what they're for, probably for some type of winder. The front of the camera, we've got this multifunction lever here. If we wind the camera on, press that button in, and then pull that lever down, press the shutter button, and it actuates the self timer. So that's the self timer. And then if we take the lens off, if you just press that lever forward towards the lens, you get a depth of field preview. And I'll take the lens off for this next one. If we press that button in and then again press it towards the mirror, push it towards the mirror, it locks the mirror up. And to release the mirror, you just simply press that button. So it's got mirror lock up. At this side, it's got flash contacts. I'm not sure which ones are the for. I think it's FP flash, and then we've got the normal X flash synchronization. But if you're using dedicated flash guns, Pentax or third party flash guns for this, to use it in the TTL mode, it will connect onto there and do everything automatically. If you want the flash to be off the camera, you need a special cord that goes onto there and then goes to the flash gun, and it'll send all the information as regarding exposure distance through the cable, so you can use it off camera as well. Put the lens back on. The back of the camera is opened by pulling this lever up and then just pulling it again, and the back opens. The actual back comes off, and that's so you can fit different backs on the camera, but it comes off very easily. I'll just show you loading the camera. It's what they call the Pentax magic needle system. Place the film at this side and then pull it along until it engages with the cogs at this side. The sprockets engage with the cogs, and then just pull it on and it engages into the magic needles. So it's a very quick way of loading the camera. I can just show you now, if I put the back on, the frame count, how it works. If I keep winding the film on, and let's say I take an exposure at number 4, and I want to go back to the previous exposure to double expose, if I press that rewind button there, you can rewind the actual film back, and if you listen, it's very, very accurate. It just went to 1, 2. So I could now double expose on number 2, or I could go carry on and rewind back to number 1. So it's a very accurate system, and it registers the film perfectly. And to rewind the film, obviously, as I say, you press that button and you just keep rewinding back, and we're on 0 there, and the film's rewound. Pull that up, just drop it out. The bottom of the camera, it's got various contacts, electronic contacts there. These are where you fit the motor drives. It's got a tripod socket, a rewind button there, and this is where you fit the batteries. But as I mentioned earlier with this camera, it will work without batteries from 1/75th of a second right up to 2000. I'm in bulb mode. If you have batteries in, it will work at 60th down to virtually minutes. So all in all, that's it. That's the Pentax LX. It's a beautiful camera. It's a very versatile camera. I'll just show you some of the finders that I've got. If I take the standard one off, this is the FB1 action finder, and we slide that in, same as we did with the standard finder. Now the beauty of this finder is you can attach different attachments to that. Now if I'm doing macro work, I can put this this one on. This is the FD1 finder. It's a magnifying finder, and that simply, again, you align the red dot with a red dot. If I can get it on there. That's it. then it locks into position, and now you've got a magnifying viewfinder. It magnifies the view that you're looking at, and it's fantastic for macro photography. And then if you don't, if you want to change it, there's a little button there, press that and it comes off. And this is the most versatile one I've found. This is the FC1 finder, and again it connects onto the action finder. I find it awkward at this angle, like that. And the beauty of this is that you can actually, I don't know if you can see there through the viewfinder, but you can actually use this at waist level. So it's great as a waist level finder, but you can also use it that way around, so you're using it at eye level, and it gives you keeps you away from the camera and makes it easier to use. It's a great viewfinder, is this. The only thing I've found with it, that when you have the strap on the camera, it slightly unbalances it, because it's quite heavy as that. So that's the action finder. I think that comes off like that, and then this simply slides off like that. I've also got a waist level finder. You just slide it on like that, lift it up, and you've got the waist level finder. You've also got a magnifier there for to help you focus. I don't find this very easy to use, because the actual shutter speeds and information in the viewfinder is the opposite way around, and they're upside down, and it's virtually impossible to use the camera in portrait mode. But it will have certain uses, but I don't tend to use this one a lot. As I said again in the introduction, you could buy 8 finders for this camera, so it made it very versatile. I think there was more finders for this camera than any of the other professional ones that Nikon and Canon made. Put that back on. You can change screens on this. I think there was, I don't know, there were a lot of screens, around about 12 screens, and you've got this little tweezers here to help you put the screens into the camera, and that's simply done by taking the lens off. And if we look inside, you just if I show it that way, you just push that them tweezers in, it pulls the screen out, and then put another one in. So it's quite easy to do. So as I say, there are quite a lot of screens for this camera. Now let's have a look at the metering system on this camera. When I wind the camera on, I'll lock the mirror up. You'll see when I wind the camera on that there's a checkered pattern appears. So when you point the camera at a subject, it's taking a meter reading, a reflector from that pattern. But when you've actually pressed the shutter, there's probably can't see it there, but there's another just there. There's another meter there, or I should say a diode for measuring the light, and that is actually measuring the light off the film plane in real time. It's different to the Olympus system in that the Olympus read light from the film plane, but once the exposure was actuated, that was your exposure. With this camera, because of that diode there that measures the light, once you press the shutter, it's continuously reading the light reflected off the film plane. So if you press the shutter and say it was the sun was out, and then as you were taking the exposure, the sun went in, it would instantaneously adjust the shutter speed to give you the correct exposure. So it was very advanced, and I think even today it's still a very advanced system. So the metering system was a big selling point for this camera, and I've used this camera a lot over the years, and it's very rare that it gives me incorrect exposures. The only time that it will do is obviously if we're out and we've predominantly a lot of white in the scene, such as snow. The camera will underexpose, so that's where you have to use the exposure compensation. If there's a lot of dark areas in the scene, then it's going to overexpose, and again that's where you would have to just use your brains and use the exposure compensation dial. But to all intents and purposes, it's extremely accurate. Well, I found it to be that way. Now, there are a couple of things with this camera that you have to be aware of. The first thing is what they call the sticky mirror syndrome. And what happens is, when you wind the camera on and press the shutter, the mirror won't move. And I'll show you why that happens. And it's because of this. You probably can't see it there, but it's just there's a little stop there, and it's covered with rubber. And that rubber, over the years of the camera, can become really sticky, and it actually sticks the mirror to that stop, and that's what causes the mirror to stick. A simple way around it is to replace that, or just put some a little bit of talcum powder, anything to stop it sticking, and that would cure that. So it's not a massive problem, that. The worst problem that can happen with these cameras was the electronics. And over the period of manufacture of this camera, as I said previously, they did alter the electronics in the camera. And one way to test the camera to see if yours is on its way out is if you press the exposure button just halfway, or that button at the top. If your the information LEDs in the viewfinder stay on after, I think it's about 27 seconds, it means that the internal electronics are failing. So it is something that can happen with these cameras. I've not had that problem so far, and hopefully I never will, but it could happen. And if it does, unfortunately, the cost of repairing them, if you can get the spare parts, is very, very expensive. So basically the camera becomes a doorstop. But they're the only two things really that can go wrong with this camera. So as I said in the beginning, it's a very solid, well-made camera. It's a beautiful camera to use. The viewfinder is huge in it. It really is big. This is what the viewfinder looks like. And as you can see, we've got the manual shutter speeds, and we've got at the top where the dial goes to the auto setting, and you still get the readouts. And it's the traffic light system with Pentax. When it's green, you're good to go. When it goes down to yellow, you're on the edge really of slow shutter speeds to handhold. So all in all, a fantastic camera, a camera that will last years and years and years. You will pay more for these than your average cameras, but you are, remember, buying a system camera. You can buy all the accessories still. I bought all mine from eBay. And then you've got obviously the access to all the lenses. I've got the 50mm f1.7. This is the 200mm lens. This is a 100mm macro lens. I only paid £50 for that. It's a beautiful lens. I've also got 28mm lens. This is a 135mm lens. And if we look at, say, the modern autofocus lens, Canon one, look at the size difference between the lenses. They're absolutely tiny, are the Pentax fixed focal length lenses. Really, really nice, and they feel solid and well made. Beautiful lenses. So that's about it for about the camera. We'll move on now, and I'll show you some of the pictures that I've taken over the years that I've owned this camera, and I can honestly say this camera has never ever let me down. Okay, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the review of the wonderful Pentax LX camera, and also enjoyed looking at the photographs in the slideshow that I've taken with this camera over the past few years. Now, to help support the channel, if there's any pictures you'd like to buy from the slideshow, they're all numbered, please go to the link in the description to my contact page. Tell me which picture you'd like to buy. I'll get back to you with the print sizes available and the prices. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. Better still, subscribe to my channel, and once again, stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next video.